Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. It is Saturday, April 15th, 2023. I'm Doug. Joined today is, how are you today, Raymond?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
So, Planet Savior, that's your book.
That's right.
How long ago did you start writing that there, Raymond?
Well, that's a good question. It really goes way back. Um, in the 70s, of all things, I got an Apple II Plus computer. And it had Apple Pie editing software, and I was reading Goethe, and I think it was yeah. And I was wondering how that story that he was telling would translate into modern times. So I thought I'd play with the Apple II Pie and write up a little thing, and from there it got stuck on a back shelf, back burner. I would once in a while, every couple of years, I'd tinker with it a little bit, and then I decided to try it with Amazon with KDP. It became easy to publish, not to succeed at publishing, but to publish.
So this is your only book. You had this is a second version of another. But did you publish the first book, or was it?
Yes, yes. And this is published as an update.
How long ago did you publish? What was the name of the first version?
Um, wrong turn
Wrong
in
turn
terrorists.
and terrors. So, how long ago did you publish that one?
I think that was 2019.
Why'd you decide to update it and give it to Planet Saviors, the current version?
Well, I just decided that it didn't end at the right point, and I wanted to have a better ending, but I couldn't see turning it into a series. It didn't seem appropriate, so I just introduced it with a new title.
So you've had quite a career. I was noticing your career. What? Why don't you tell me a little bit about what brought you into up to being an author?
Well, I was sort of an author in mathematics. I wrote a bunch of papers back in the late 70s, and about half a dozen papers in partial differential equations. So I was an author of a sort, but I can't really explain why I decided to write this book. I liked the story, and I liked it. And I sort of sketched it in, liked it very much. And so I thought, what the hell? I got free time.
Yeah.
I'll spend some of it on this.
So after you were in school, what did you? You were in the You were in the military. What did you do there?
Well, the Vietnam War was going on, and I was in the reserves because I was talked into it. I didn't understand it. I asked, what happens if I don't like the Navy? And they said, oh, you can just leave at any time. What they meant was you could leave the reserves at any time and go active.
Yeah.
So after I graduated, I was active, and I didn't like it a bit. But in Philadelphia, the Naval Yard, they uh, they pulled me aside and said they were looking for 4 people to work in the Pentagon, and I couldn't turn that down.
Oh
It was a
no.
nice job. And it was kind of an odd job because at that time computers were pretty new concept, mainframes. Uh, they didn't have anything like what we have today. They didn't have anything like a PC. It was all mainframe stuff. And the Pentagon was doing a project which is very interesting. Um, Lyndon Johnson, very little known fact about Lyndon Johnson is that he was very concerned about servicemen in the United States who were serving their country and were black and were unable to buy housing or rent housing near
Right.
the base. It was a real problem, and it wasn't publicized. But Johnson's commissioned 4 of us to verify verify the computer results because he wanted constant feedback, like every month, on the statistical situation. What percentage of housing units in the vicinity of military bases were willing to rent on an undiscriminatory basis, and which ones weren't? And he wanted those numbers to improve every month.
What
But they
year?
didn't.
What year was that, Raymond? When?
That would be around 70, 71,
Oh yeah.
72, somewhere.
Yeah.
And so so we did that. We every month the computer statistics would come in, and we would sit down with the Frieden and Monroe calculators. This is really going back in time, and we would verify the computer calculations, which were just percentages, but took a day or two. And that was a great job. So I was there for a couple of years. And then I went to graduate school in math at Northwestern. Um, well, actually, I had a job between the two. I worked for a small think tank in D.C. And that was interesting work. It was for the Department of Transportation. They were doing noise abatement models. So what they wanted was a model of an airport, and if they made certain treatments to reduce the noise from the airport, the cell treatments for the aircraft or whatever insulation, they wanted to be able to predict what the effect would be before they actually did it. And at the time, there was again computers were brand new, and there was a company that had an edge in that market. They had a program that was a box of cards, and it ended up with dots on a map. And a draftsman had to come in and actually connect those dots to draw the curves of equal noise exposure. So I had the job of coming up with an improvement to that. And I was really horrified at the time. It was my first job. And I didn't know any Fortran. I didn't know anything about computers. I certainly didn't know anything about noise. So that was a real challenge to pull that off. And I was successful in that.
Very nice.
So I went back to
Was it the is it the noise inside the airport that you hear the
well,
aircraft inside the airport or on the tarmac
you,
or
you hear people taking off and landing, and you're worried about the people on the ground, the community, getting complaints about the noise. And so the way it works is when a plane is low to the ground, there's a thing called noise attenuation, and the grass and the plants actually suck up some of the noise.
oh wow.
So it's better. It's a little bit quieter, but when you're down low, you get up high. There's nothing much blocking the noise, and it gets worse. And it's at different angles. It's different. The signature around the plane it's not a circle. Some areas are louder than others. So there was a lot to learn, and I had a ball. And then I went to economics. Economic times took a little downturn, and my boss said that I could go to graduate school. He would let me work there until I was ready to go. So I did that. Went to Northwestern and got a PhD in math.
But you were kind of an average I thought it was interesting that you got a PhD. My buddy was a PhD and he was a brainiac when we were in school. We grew up together and he was you're very average and then you end up getting I was kind of struck a familiar tone with your algebra story because I got a D in algebra. I've
Yeah.
never forgotten it.
Well, I was not a very good student ever, even in public schools or even in college, until I got to graduate school. And in graduate school, everything changes. Up until graduate school, you're a good student if you're obedient and do what you're told, when you're told, how you're told. In graduate school, the rules change. They say, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's not what you're told or how you're told. You figure out how to do it. And you make a publishable paper, say something, put something down that is not obvious to people in the trade. And that's a real challenge, and some people can't do it. It requires a breakthrough of some sort. You have to see something that no one else has seen.
Yeah.
It's not predictable who's going to succeed, who's going to fail at that. Some people came to graduate school very cocky and sure that they'd be on top of the class and they were on the bottom.
Yeah.
And some were the other way around.
Do
So
you
I wouldn't recommend it unless you really love math.
So with Planet Saviors, how did you come up with the main character names? You know, we've got Stella and John and Walt and Million is Eugen. How do you pronounce it? Eugen?
Yes.
How,
I
how,
don't know. I just picked them out of the air.
yeah, no rhyme or reason. I had an author on last Dan Harari last week, and he had very specific reasons that he selected the names of the characters, or you know. So I just pulled them just randomly. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, the names, I didn't do, but Shaw, George Bernard Shaw said that what he wrote, he started with a collection of characters that he thought interacted well, were interesting, and then he said, just let it rip. And that's kind of what I tried to do. So I tried to define the characters' personalities, and then just let it rip. It was very simple.
How long did it take you to do the upgrade, or between the two books? How long did it take you to write those?
Oh, it wasn't very long, but again, it was sporadic. It was every now and then. I guess altogether, if you add it up, it was probably 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. So the story, there's Stella. Tell us a little bit about Stella.
Well, I don't know if this is the sort of thing your viewers normally talk about on the show, but it's not really science fiction in the sense of gee whiz gadgets, that sort of thing, or Wookiees or anything like that. It's about, if there's a scientific aspect, it's really about genetic engineering. I think is at the heart of it, and human personalities, human tendencies. Um, Stella lives on a planet which is paradise by our standards. They're a million years ahead of Earth technologically. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you notice that a lot of people don't have a grasp of what that means to be a million years ahead. But I look at Earth, and the difference between 1900 and now is going from not even being sure about atoms to where we are. And that's a huge amount. So a million years is unimaginable. They're so far ahead that they don't work. They have robots do all the work. They don't get sick because they've pretty much conquered viruses and bacteria. Um, it's a pretty free and easy life. But Stella's view, she was born as an aberrant. They called her an aberrant because she was programmed to be docile and easygoing and not a troublemaker, a perfect model citizen. But she loved, the book opens with her being a child, about 10 years old. And she's up in a tree, high up in a tree. And her mother comes to the bottom and she's horrified. And Stella says, do you want to see me go higher? And her mother gasps and says, no, no, come down. So she makes sure she doesn't spook her, she doesn't scare her. She talks her down. And that's kind of emblematic of Stella's personality. She wants to be on a buzz. She wants to be on a high. She wants adventure and excitement. And that's exactly not what she was programmed to do. And she's at odds with the rest of her society. There's a few others like her, but she's pretty much in a class by herself.
So she broke out kind of on her own, away from the genetic engineering. She somehow was it.
So she was engineered, but somehow it didn't take with her the way it took with the others.
Yeah.
And so she sees it as an atrocity that her countrymen are living what she calls like spoiled brats.
Yeah.
They didn't lift a finger to get where they are. They're reaping all the benefits of earlier generations that did all the heavy lifting. They don't have interests, or they just want to be entertained. She calls them couch potatoes.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit allegorical, right? Kind
Yeah.
of like a reflection of where we're going to end up.
Yes.
And so she's pretty upset about this, and she gets to watching some Earth TV. Somebody's got a TV that will pick in the broadcast signals from Earth. So
Yeah,
she
the
puts up
80s sitcoms.
the 80s sitcoms. She loves it. She said that's the way we ought to be living now. These people can make happiness out of nothing. And so she comes to Earth. She wants to meet some humans and see if they will volunteer to come back with her to teach the people on her home planet how to live a good life. Well, that's the main plot. And so she meets this one character, John, who's what can I say? He's a Howard Stern type character.
Oh.
He's got a sharp tongue, can be acerbic, can be rude at times, but he's charismatic overall somehow. It doesn't seem to fit, but it does in his case.
Were you a Howard Stern fan, Raymond?
I like Howard, yeah.
You're an interesting guy. I know some of it. I was reading through some of the comments and things, and this isn't an adult necessarily. There's some steamy parts of it, but it's not really an adult science fiction.
Well, I'd rather err on the safe side.
Yeah.
Have people say it's pretty mild sex for
Yeah, I would say
but
so.
then have some kid, who isn't benefited by it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was well written. I went through the book and I thought it was well portrayed.
I think it's too easy to write sex scenes.
Yeah.
raunchy and
Yeah.
that's easy.
There's no point. And what's the point? You know, takes
Yeah,
away from the story.
right.
So you got John, and then
He's
Walt.
trying to he's trying to save Earth. He believes that communism, we ought to be going communist. The whole world should be going communist. And he's kind of a strange person. I knew some people like that
Yeah.
who were devoted communists, and they,
Oh, really?
oh yeah, they would read Karl Marx or something and say, yeah, that's right. He's got the right ideas.
I've never knowingly ran across anybody that was communist.
There aren't
You,
many.
yeah.
No, I don't think there are.
Yeah, I don't think they put it out there
Uh,
too much. I was in the military too.
uh,
So yeah, I was in the 70s. So I'm familiar somewhat with what you're talking about, but it was, better, the communist was the stone enemy. I mean, better dead than red, you know.
right. So anyway, John and Stella get it on because she hears so much about him. He's pumped up because he's this charismatic guy. But she wants to test him and see if he's really as great as they say. And of course, she tests him in bed over a weekend. And that's the sex part that
Yeah.
referred to. And then they have to make a decision about whether to go back with her, who to take along, or what to do. And that's the so that ended the first one. The second one, they actually go back, and on the voyage back, they work with a primitive planet who's going to have an asteroid storm and destroy them, and so they have to evacuate the planet, and they take that as a little cause. Um, and it wraps up the story, all this stuff has to terminate somehow. You get the affair, you have the political positions, and has to terminate somehow. So that's the work of the second part of the book.
How did you now? Do you have an interest necessarily in um, UFOs and extraterrestrials, or is it more of a
Oh,
political thing that you
no,
kind
no,
of, you know?
I think I think it's fascinating. Every year, it seems that there's a rash of sightings somewhere and a rash of opinions about whether they're real or not. Um, the questions that I was most fascinated by is, assuming they are real, which I do, why would they want to come here? If they're advanced enough to be able to travel somehow beyond the speed of light, which they'd have to be, I think, why would they want to come here? That was my first question. And the second question is, if they were to come here, what would they think of us? So in the story, there's a thing called the FUP report. The FUP is a committee, a United Planet thing. So planets, what they're looking for is there is a bomb which can take down the galaxy. And they don't want any primitive planet to discover the formula for that bomb and go and get themselves in trouble and get other people in trouble. So they want to intercede with that particular case and do something to prevent that. But otherwise, they just want to observe the planet and see how they're doing. There's this FUP report, and it gives Earth very low marks. So when Stella back home says that she wants to go visit Earth, people say, why do you want to do that? I mean, haven't you read the FUP report? Don't you know what they say about the Earthlings? And so she reads it. And when she's with John, one of the problems she has is he doesn't believe her at first. I mean, she says she's from outer space. And he's supposed to say, yeah, but it doesn't work that way. So he wants some proof. He says, you got to come up with something convincing, something plausible that tells me that you're from outer space. And so she fumbles around coming up with things, but they stumble onto this FUP report. And he tells her about the FUP report. I mean, she tells him about the FUP report. And the FUP report is, I hate to spoil it for anybody who would want to read the book. I wouldn't want to say too much here, but basically they call Earth Fantasy Island in outer space because they think that we're very delusional as a race compared to others that they see. And that's her point. Again, I don't want to spoil it. But
No, we don't want to do too much into that. I just wanted to kind of develop, how you develop the characters. I do have a question on the illustration though, which I'm going to put up here. You have a copy of the book in front of you? I just have a black
Yeah,
and
I do.
white picture. I want to
No,
make sure everybody sees the cover since we want to put it out there. We have a lot of science fiction fans that are that,
see that?
lift it up just a little bit. Cover your face with it. There you go. Not that we want to cover your face. That's perfect. That'll work. And who did the illustration to that, Raymond? Do you know the
Um,
person, or is it just?
I don't know her personally. I think her name was Myrna. Am I right? I can't remember the last name.
I really like it.
Yeah, I understand. Well, you know, it's so important. Well, if you ever write a book, have you written any books?
Oh yeah,
Oh, well, you know all about it. So the importance of the cover.
yeah, absolutely. It grabs you, and then you look at the synopsis, see if
Uh,
that gets you. Yeah. So I found it interesting, but I always like to see the viewpoint also of a person who's of your experience of what you think of the. I don't know if they've come here for another theory is that they're from the future. They're
mhm,
extraterrestrials, that they aren't actually from another galaxy.
mhm.
But there's there that's one theory. That's crazy. That's a crazy one. I semi subscribe that these things that we see are us evolved over thousands upon thousands of years in the future, because you can see how we've evolved from the past to the present. We certainly
Mhm.
continue to be evolved going forward. So on the show the show's premised around we have your average person. We don't have scientists. You're about as close to a scientist as we. Yeah, of course. I had my co-host was also a scientist, but we don't have high-powered guy, ufologists and things. But I have your average our average person um, on the show that gives their opinion about what is going on out there. And I like to see people, because I always ask people on the street. I drive my wife crazy. Do you believe? Because we'll be out and about at a craft show or something. Do you believe in UFOs? And I like to hear people's opinion. And back in the day, you would be, maybe not the 70s, but the 60s. If you would mention the fact that you believed in flying saucers and extraterrestrials, you'd be labeled as kind of a crackpot, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you don't really want
Well,
to put it out there like you would today.
well, you know, when I look at what convinces me, it's I've seen several people claim that they've seen UFOs or even that they've been inside one. And the thing that I um, take into consideration is I don't think very many people are good liars. I believe that, a good liar could fool me. But for example, there was this one time that they had five people who were all, I guess, teenagers or early 20s or something. And they all claimed that they were taken up into this UFO and examined and then released. And they all five passed the lie detector test. And I don't think that you get five random people who can pass a lie detector test on anything.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
five.
I agree with that.
And over and over again, they'll show these pilots who have a story, and the story is similar, and it's kind of the same thing. They're either all lying or something's
Yeah.
goofier. And they don't seem like liars. They don't seem like they're lying. So that's not scientific, but that convinces me that there's a strong probability that they're telling the truth.
A lot of discussion about what, if they're around, they always seem to crash in the middle of the desert.
Well,
It's never in anybody's neighbor. Maybe that's just where they are because they're observing nuclear facilities and, rockets and armament and that type of thing. They're not really concerned about what goes on in a metropolitan city, although there's sightings there, but they never seem to crash there. So it's, your average person.
do you think that do you get the opinion that on Earth our population was planted here?
That's one theory.
Mm-hmm.
I explored in the show. We explore every possible explanation. It could have been planned. There's one thing there's a theory about the moon. I don't know if you've heard this one.
Right.
where
It's hollow.
it's hollow. It was brought from another galaxy through a wormhole, possibly. But if you ever look at the moon when there's a solar eclipse, it's exactly
Right.
the diameter of the sun. And what are the odds that the moon would be that exact size?
Well, the one thing I'd like to, sometime when I have some time, I'd like to investigate this question. Can you mathematically or compute with a computer model the process of evolution? Because it's supposed to take place as random variants, random variations, and the most successful survivable mutation is the one that survives. And through a continual process, you go from one-celled organisms to intelligent life. Now, if you can model that on a computer and say that here's a sequence of steps that would be required, here's how long it would take to achieve intelligent life, maybe you come to a conclusion that it's not possible that you could get from one cell to where we are now in the time that we've had. You must have started with something better than that. Now, have you heard that view?
I haven't heard. That's an interesting thought. I It's more probable we were brought. I don't know if we were. Yeah, we came to this from a one-celled organism. That's I would find that highly unlikely. What are the odds?
Yeah.
But if we came from somewhere else, where'd they come from? How are they? If we were developed, then how were the people that brought us here developed? Where'd they come from? Were they one-celled? So,
Well, I
yeah,
don't think we couldn't even describe the steps involved.
yeah.
How would you go from an apparently intelligent being to one that's actually conscious and intelligent? How would you
Yeah.
do that? What would the program look like?
Have you heard of simulation theory?
Yep.
What do you think about that?
You mean as it applies to what we're
Well,
talking
just
about?
is it? I don't want to say possible, but I mean, is it something that it's plausible? You know, are we not really here? Is somebody else pulling the strings? Are we even this show? Is
Oh,
somebody else? Is it a game that an alien teenager's playing? Have you seen The
is it
Matrix?
is it a dream?
Is it a dream? You've seen The Matrix, right? Do you watch
Right.
science fiction, Raymond?
Not a lot. I don't have the time.
It's it's interesting. You made a science fiction book that's good, and that don't really even most. And I don't even know because I've never interviewed anybody who wrote science fiction except last week, Daniel Harari. Um, but I think he had an interest in science fiction. So you're more than science fiction. You're the philosophical and political aspect of
Well,
the
there's only
planets.
so many only so many hours in a day. So my days just disappear.
Yeah.
Got to go out and shoot some pool almost every day. That's one thing.
You have a pool table at your house?
No, we got them all around the neighborhood though. So I like to get out and shoot a little bit.
Are you Pennsylvania still?
No, I'm in near Chicago, Forest Park, western suburb.
Oh, so you've got those hole in the wall pool parlor kind of things.
Yeah, yeah, all over the place.
They still are prevalent there, huh? That's interesting. Like
Yeah.
from way back when.
The 30s, it used to be big.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a pool table here at the house and it mostly got, I do play pool, but it mostly got used for putting stuff on.
Well, what I learned the most interesting things with pool. Um, here's something that I think is fascinating. Over the years, I've tried every way imaginable to develop an aiming system that was superior. And I come to the conclusion after all that research that the best one is the one that you hear recommended over and over by the people who really know how to play the game. They say you just shoot and you learn to see when you're right on. You just see it. Your brain has the ability to register those things. And, you look out over a landscape, and when people are blind, when they're born blind, and their vision's restored, that happens now and then. They don't perceive the world the way we do. For example, they don't know whether a sphere is going to look round. They're given several objects to choose from, and they say which one is the sphere. Now they know what a sphere feels like, but they can't relate that to what it looks like. So your brain is doing a lot of things for you. And just recently I started trying to do what the pros say you should do, and that just teach your brain how to recognize when a shot is on and when it's not. And that's just through repetition and focusing. And I'll be darned, it really is true. That's the best way. Trying to look for mathematical trigonometric solutions, it doesn't work.
I was going to ask, do you use the mathematical, like the dots on the side of, to do combo shots and things?
Uh, I have tried all that stuff, and it just doesn't work. And you keep getting beaten by people who don't do any of that.
Yeah.
And after so many years, you learn your lesson. Let your brain do the work.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah, I never did the math. I used the dots kind of, but I was fairly good. But it's a fun game. Is that how you spend your days usually? Do you just what do you
Well, I get out for an hour or so every other day, or a couple times a week.
play for money?
No, I wouldn't do that. People get too unpleasant.
Yeah, yeah. Get attitude. You know. What else do you do, Raymond? For you got other hobby? You writing any new books, or you know?
No, I'm not. I'm not doing any more writing right now. I I exercise. I take boxing lessons.
Oh wow, how you doing with
I
that?
well, I got Parkinson's, and so the boxing is very good for Parkinson's. It's good exercise. Get your blood going.
Yeah,
You feel better after the workout than you did before.
yeah.
So all the people that I know who have Parkinson's, who have tried boxing, like it, and it's women and men both. You're not actually boxing; you're sitting in a bag. But you're going through a boxing exercise workout.
It's interesting. I thought boxing was kind of the cause of Parkinson's sometimes. Is
Well, it
that not?
probably is, but we don't get hit on the head though.
Yeah, I know you guys wouldn't. I hope not. Are you still driving? You still
Oh
getting?
yeah, yeah.
What kind of car you drive, Raymond? I have to know.
I have an Avalon, an
Oh,
old
okay.
Avalon, 2012 Avalon.
Nice, nice neighbor. So, let's talk a little bit more about the other characters here in the book without divulging too much about it. How about Walt? We got Walt.
Well, it's an interesting guy. He's based partially on my life. Um, he his significance in the book is that he had an event, a near death event, which kind of changed the way he looked at the world, which I had myself when I was in high school. And this, when I was in high school, we were coming toward the end of 12th grade, and it started to warm up. It was a nice day, and we decided that we would go down to this nature area and just kind of goof around, do something. There was a dam, and with the spring waters, the dam was higher than usual, flowing over the top. And so we said, let's go out and walk across it, our bare feet. Well, I got out there a couple of steps, and my feet slipped out from underneath me on this mossy surface, and I went down in the middle of the flow. And when I got down, I said, boy, it's a good thing I didn't hit my head on the dam. And then the next thing I said, which way's up?
Oh,
I didn't know which way was up because it was just foam, circling, swirling foam. So I held my breath longer than I ever thought I could, probably 3 times as long as I thought I could. And everybody on shore said he's gone. There's no way he can survive this. But my head popped up out of the water just at the very split second. I was about to give up. Head popped up. I took a big breath of air and it pulled me down again.
oh,
And then a friend of mine on top of the dam dove down and helped me to get out. And
rescued
for
you. Wow,
rescued him.
nice.
And then the scary part was, this is really weird. For a period of 2 weeks after that, I had this nagging doubt. I wasn't convinced that I was actually alive. I thought, how do you know that you're not lying on a hospital bed in a coma, dreaming all this shit up? And I couldn't convince myself that for sure that was not the case. But I didn't know. And I met somebody else who had a similar experience. He had nightmares for a couple of months.
Uh,
It's a real life transformation. So that's what Walt had, this life transformation where he looked death right in the eye and he got through it. And he no longer feared death. So he said, what the hell? I'm just going to do what I really want to do with my life.
yeah.
And what he wanted to do with his life was some sexual scientific investigations, which sounds really weird. Made him an oddball. And he said, I don't give a damn. I'm going to do what I want.
He's his
So
own
it's
guy.
his own guy. It's kind of what the book's about. It's about different approaches to life,
It
and
just
that's
seems like a fun book, you
yeah.
know. It seems.
I think so. A lot of people think it is, but I get mixed reviews. I mean, some people hate it.
Yeah, that's like all books. It just
Yeah.
depends on what your state of mind is. When you're reading it, and that type of thing. I mean, it's sci-fi. It's political. It's you know, so it's interesting on different fronts.
Mm-hmm.
It's got variety and the good characters. And how about Millie? What's Millie about?
Well, when Stella gets to Earth, she needs a friend because she doesn't know which end up. How's she going to convince people to go back with her? Uh,
She's
so
she's from Mund. Is she from Mund?
yeah, Stella is from Mund. That's the name of her planet. And so Millie is introduced when she's a food server, who serves Stella dinner at this saloon. And she they strike up a friendship almost immediately because Stella needs a friend desperately. And Millie's just kind of a nice, easygoing person. And so Millie helps her to line up some candidates, and she explains the way things work around here. And it provides that friendship role. And it's another approach to life, just to be a kind of a laid back and friendly person
Good.
and
Very
take it
nice.
easy.
And then we got Oigen. What's
Well,
Oigen
Jim,
about? Yeah,
well,
where did that name come from? It almost looked like oxygen. I was a speed reader. I wanted to tell you, I took
well,
speed reading in high school, so I'm
oh,
like when I see Oigen, it always goes to oxygen.
that's the editor thinks too. So Huygen was I don't know where that name came from, but he's a chief of a primitive tribe in outer space. And like I mentioned earlier, they have a asteroid storm coming that's targeted right at them. And John and company help them off the planet. So Huygen is the chief, and he resonates with Walt a lot because Walt's got a physics background, and Huygen's religious beliefs are kind of mystical by our standards. He thinks that the uh, the future is just a repetition, endless repetition of explosions like big bangs. And each one, there's only so many particles in the universe. No matter how large it is, it's still a finite number of particles. You can only arrange them in so many different ways. Now, it would take a long, long time to rearrange even once. But suppose time is not an issue. Suppose that any number of years could pass and you'd be unaware of it because you're not activated. You're only activated once. Like after we had a big bang, and we do what we've done to get where we are. So Eugen believes that you'll all be back in the same form, in the same place, sooner or later. And certainly it's going to be later. But he has mystical beliefs like that, which actually resonate with Walt. Walt looks at it from a physical point of view, looking at the laws of thermodynamics and things. And he says, yeah, that makes sense. I don't necessarily believe it, but you have the right to believe that. I don't have any disproof. So Walt and Eugen get along great. And
Are you a
uh,
religious type, uh, Raymond? Do you?
yeah, I'm religiously non-religious.
Yeah. It's a question that's out there with the UFO phenomenon that if it's there's supposed to be a disclosure at some point. It's always tomorrow.
Mm.
But it never seems to get disclosure, never seems to come. But it seems to be getting closer. It seems to be getting closer, as they eke out information and with social media, and nothing's a secret. And it's what's going to happen with the people that, if it comes out that there is extraterrestrials on Earth, and what are they doing, and are
Mm.
my wife says it kind of depends on what their attitude is. Are they bad or whatever? They always seem to be bad in science fiction. They always seem to be bad, you know and the like the my guest from last week, he made them very friendly. So what do you think the religious implications are, for people that are religious, I should say? What's going to be their reaction to the fact that maybe we were planted here, as you discussed earlier? What do you think their reaction's going to be?
Well, I think that we we used to be comfortable with the idea that everything was made for us, that we're the center of the universe, and God created the whole universe just to adorn us. That's hard to defend anymore when you see that you're just another planet and you're no more advanced than your neighbors and you're no more privileged. It's going to be hard to sell the idea that God is there just for us. That's what I think the difficulty.
Yeah, I think it might be. Well, there was a movie called Contact, where they were able to go through to another universe through a wormhole, and the religious. There was a character who played by Gary Busey, who was the religious fanatic, and he blew up the machine. And
Oh,
every time I discuss the religious implications of, if the ETs are here, I kind of think of that. I don't think everybody that's religious is going to act like that. I have a gentleman in Florida who's had sightings. He has sightings all the time. He's at the Lake Okeechobee, and he
have you ever
sees.
had a sighting?
What's that?
Have you ever had a sighting yourself?
I saw the only thing I've seen is that I haven't seen a UFO that I know of specifically, but I lived up in the foothills of California, and one night it looked like three stars in a triangular pattern off in the distance, and it looked like lights, kind of like an aircraft, but it was a point of light coming through this triangle, but nothing from behind. It was kind of just exiting out the triangle.
Mm.
And I was with my son and his friend. My son didn't see it, but his friend clearly saw it with me, and it was really bizarre. We couldn't figure out what it was. Have you ever seen anything?
No, I wish I did.
I wish I did too. I would love to be able to put my hand on one. I have this discussion with people all the time. I just want to be able to, see it with my own eyes, and but as you get on in years, you're like, oh, is it ever going to happen?
Huh.
Or if they're going to be able to disclose actually what's going on. So I don't know. So you have anything left to talk about in the book there, sir?
No, I think we're pretty well done.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for
Okay,
listening. Thanks for
been a
listening.
ball.
Yeah, thanks for listening to the Alien Probe podcast. Hear us on all podcast platforms. Visit us on YouTube at Alien Probe Podcast. Like and subscribe. Visit us on Twitter and Instagram at Alien Probe Pod. Thank you to our producer, Robert Anthony, and of course, Raymond Hunter. And let's go ahead and put the book up again, Raymond, one more time so we can wrap it up. Get you everybody go
Here you
out.
go.
We can find it on Amazon, right?
That's right.
Okay. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon. And like and subscribe, Alien Probe Podcast, and watch the skies.